Welcome to my race video / breakdown of the 2025 Cherry Blossom 10 miler. If you're new here, welcome. Come on in, the water's warm, or, whatever other metaphor for welcome you prefer instead of that one. If you're returning, welcome back. Thanks for watching, and if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe to the channel. All right, let's talk the Cherry Blossom 10 miler, which takes place in Washington, D.C. every year during the Cherry Blossom Festival. What is a cherry blossom, you might ask? Well, the cherry blossoms are these fun, pretty trees that surround the tidal basin in the city that tend to bloom in late March or early April, and that were a gift from Japan to the United States in the early 1900s. To commemorate that gift from the Japanese, a 4-week festival was established, and in 1973, the Cherry Blossom 10-mile run was instituted as part of the festivities. The first thing you should know about the race is that it's extremely popular. It's so popular, in fact, that in order to run, you have to enter a lottery. I don't know the stats on the percentage of people accepted through the lottery, but it does appear there were 16,755 10-mile runners this year. For a probably relatively unhelpful perspective, I entered the lottery for the 2024 race and didn't get in. So for me, so far, it's a 50% success or failure rate, depending on how you look at it. We'll see if that percentage goes up or down in the next few years if I decide to try this race again. The second thing to know about this race is that it's huge. The number of runners here versus the rock and roll half that I ran in March were comparable, but this felt so much bigger. This year, the race was also the official USA Track and Field 10-mile road race championship for both the men and the women, which meant there were a good number of elite and sub-elite runners. In fact, on the men's side, a new 10-mile American record was set by Alex Mayer with a time of 45 minutes 15 seconds. Taylor Rowe, the winner on the women's side, set the world best and American record time, running 10 miles in 49 minutes 53 seconds. These times are disgustingly fast. And as a technicality, I learned that because World Athletics doesn't recognize the 10-mile race as an official distance, Taylor's record is considered a world best instead of a world record, which is dumb. But whatever, she's a world record holder in my book. The third thing to know about the race, though, kind of directly correlates with that. That is, the 10-mile distance is an odd one. Probably the most common racing distances for casual runners are the 5K, the 10K, the half marathon, and the marathon. 10 miles falls weirdly right in the middle of the 10K and half marathon distance. I found this one especially weird because all my training throughout the winter was focused on half marathon and half marathon pacing. And I'll admit that I really didn't think through my pacing strategy for this 10-mile race until, maybe 10 minutes before it started. So, not ideal. Talking about the actual race, let's take it back to 2 days before when I headed into DC to pick up my race packet and shirt and check out the expo. Hello again, long time no talk. I am back down here in Washington, D.C. It is Friday, April 4th. I'm down here again because on Sunday, April 6th, I am running the Cherry Blossom 10 miler. So I'm down here at the National Building Museum for packet pickup. How am I feeling about this race? Not great. Finished the rock and roll half marathon 3 weeks ago. Went pretty well, even though I was feeling a little under the weather. And, I just haven't been in a very good running routine since then. So I'm not really used to this distance. I ran it one other time in the fall of 2023. And so, I don't know. I don't really have any goals for this race except to enjoy. Unfortunately, the cherry blossoms have all but fallen off the trees, but still looking forward to a fun race, even though it's going to be a little bit warm. So I'm going to go packet pickup now, and then I will take you through the race on Sunday. This expo was really well organized with tons of volunteers and a nice flow. I was in and out in about 30 minutes, which includes having time to pick up some gels and electrolytes at one of the booths there. All right, I have successfully picked up my bib. This one is a honker. Look how big this thing is. It's much bigger than the rock and roll one. All set for the race on Sunday. Weather is not going to be great. They were confirming it inside. Looks like it's going to be about 68 to 70 degrees at the race start time at 7:30 in the morning. And then after that, looks like we might get a little rain. Not sure yet. Honestly, again, don't really have any time goals here. Just going to go and enjoy myself. Try to see the city and do our best. Again, I think my time from the previous 10 miler was something like 1 hour, 29 minutes. Oh my gosh, I'm talking here. 1 hour, 29 minutes, something. So we'll see if I can get around there. I think based on my fitness with the half marathon, I should be able to, but I guess we'll see. All right, see you on Sunday. After leaving the expo, I went back to work for the day and did some minor carb loading on Friday evening and Saturday before the race on Sunday morning. According to my Coros watch, hashtag not a sponsor, yet, I got a decent 6 hours and 31 minutes of sleep the night before the race. 2 nights before, I slept for an unusually long 9.5 hours, so that was definitely a plus leading into this race. Okay, so race morning, I was up around 5:40 in the morning and in the car into DC by 6:15 or so. I parked and walked to the start line, which was in the shadow of the Washington Monument. I'll admit that even though I've driven and walked past and biked past that monument hundreds of times, it was a cool feeling to line up for the start of a race right next to it. The weather on the day was cooler than projected. It was in the upper 50s at the start, but more humid than I would have hoped. So I'm walking to the start line now. It is just before 7. I think my wave goes off at 7:34. We'll see how it goes. Before the race kicked off though, I went to the spectator portion of the start line to listen to the national anthem and watch the elite women as they went off. That was pretty cool. Walking back to my wave, which was second to go off, I passed the elite men who lined up for their start about 12 minutes after the women. I got to the back of my corral, which was the red corral, and downed a salted watermelon goo. Hashtag not a sponsor. Yet. During races, I tend to like the Morton Energy Gels or the BPN Go Gels, but since my first big race back in 2023, I've had a tradition to knock back that salted watermelon goo right before the starting gun, and it's something I've gotten used to. And just like that, we were off.
Federal Credit Union provided all the volunteer support for that. We see them over there on the side. Congratulations. You did the job.
10 miles, here we go. Oh, also, I forgot to mention that this race has a mascot. Is that a normal thing for races to have mascots? Anyway, this mascot is super cool. His name is Stumpy, and he is modeled after what was a real and sad-looking cherry blossom tree that previously stood along the tidal basin for 25 years before it was felled in 2024. Thankfully, the mascot lives on to preserve his memory. I spotted him at the start line, I saw him on the course, and I was lucky enough to see him up close and personal after the race. Stumpy! Back to the race, I came through 1 mile in 8:42. Was that what I was hoping for? I guess. Again, I didn't really have a plan, but I did sort of figure before I started running that my average pace for the whole race could be faster than the 8:43 per mile I averaged during the half marathon 3 weeks earlier. I knew I hadn't gotten a lot of specific training in those 3 weeks, but I also didn't think I'd lost a ton of fitness either. I came through 2 miles in 8:36. I came through 3 miles in 8:32, and I crossed mile 4 in 8:38. At this point, I was starting to find my groove, and the crowd support was pretty great through this stage of the race. The course followed a similar path to the Rock and Roll Half through this point, so it was somewhat familiar territory. Of course, being the cherry blossom 10-miler, we had to run by the tidal basin to see the beautiful trees that lined the banks of the water. Wow, look at the cherry blossoms. Okay, so yeah, the blossoms had already reached peak bloom by the time the race happened, and were mostly off the trees. Still nice, but not quite as picturesque as I had hoped. Mile 5 was an 8:34, and mile 6 was an 8:42. At this point in the course, you're kind of slingshot around the entirety of Haines Point, which accounts for nearly the final 4 miles of the race. It's nice, but the course also narrows a decent amount, so I was definitely feeling the crowds a bit more here. I finished mile 7 in 8:33, mile 8 in 8:34, and mile 9 in 8:35. This was absolutely the most consistent portion of the entire run for me, looking back at the data, and yet I can distinctly remember feeling completely wiped during those miles. As we exited Haines Point to head back toward the finish line, the crowd support picked up and... My God, we have cherry blossoms! Yes, honest to goodness cherry blossoms. A pretty great way to ring in the final couple hundred meters of the race. Of course, the end of the race was pretty much the only elevation on the course, but I gave it my all and pushed as hard as I could to the finish. Last push! I came across in a time of 1 hour, 27 minutes, 10 seconds, which was a
PR, baby!
I finished with an average pace of 8:36 per mile, which I'm pretty happy with, all things considered. I pushed pretty hard throughout different parts of the race and got the heart rate into the mid 170s at the end, which has typically been pretty difficult for me to sustain that late in a distance race. After the race, I collected my medal, met up with a friend who was spectating, and then headed home. Hot tip, you do have to purchase the medal separately if you run this race. It's not included in the registration, which is a little weird. But since this was my first one, I wanted to make sure I got it. Overall, I was pretty pleased with the outcome of this one. It turned out better than I expected, and the cooler than predicted weather was a welcome turn in my favor. So, would I do this one again? Maybe? I still find the 10-mile distance kind of odd. It's not bad by any means, it just feels incomplete, especially when you sandwich it between two half marathons. Speaking of which, my next video is going to be all about the inaugural Alexandria Half Marathon, which I ran at the end of April, 3 weeks after this race. Stay tuned for that video coming soon. Well, relatively soon, I hope. As always, I'm grateful to run, and I'm grateful for today. Thanks for watching. See you soon.